about that specifically, the success of this agreement depends on these alternative programs, right? Can they succeed without a dedicated funding source?
In many respects, I would say the success of the agreement is it works in both directions. We've built an agreement that is flexible to deal with either situation, again, because it's an equitable cost-sharing arrangement between us. Your point about there is indeed pressure on our budgets for alternatives. Having said that, Councilmember Burgess spoke about one we are hopeful to start soon, a program called Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. So there are pressures on it, but there's also a commitment to it, and we're continuing to work with new approaches as well for things that work best.
Just to add to that, the Mayor's correct that this agreement works either way, whether populations decline or increase. But it is also true that the public would be safer and we'll save more money if we have the funds to invest up front in things we know keep people out of a life of crime. A very large percentage of those coming into the criminal justice system are struggling with untreated mental illness or substance addiction. And we know that if we're able to get to those underlying issues, we can get people's lives back on track. That saves lives and it saves the public a lot of money, but you have to be able to make those upfront investments. Yes?
And just very briefly, you mentioned lack of a dedicated revenue source for these programs. It's a really key point to funding, but one I just want to highlight, and one that these folks are all familiar with, we do have a mental health chemical dependency sales tax, 1/10 of a cent, that the council adopted maybe 3 years ago or so now. That brings in about $45 million annually. A number of those funds go to the exactly kind of programs we're talking about. These alternatives are really critical. So that is a dedicated funding source the county council adopted. That's been a real key. About 14 counties around the state have similar funding sources. There's more we need, but there is at least that dedicated source. That's very helpful.
Others?
What is will be the financial impact then? I know it saves $200 million, you said, not building a new facility, but what will the financial share cost?
So for King County, I can speak to King County. For King County, this means about $11 million in revenue per year from the city of Seattle to house Seattle inmates. And that provides a reliable funding stream which allows us to plan for the most efficient operation of the jail. We have had a situation in the past where the costs and the number of prisoners have been somewhat unpredictable, and the county has to take some responsibility as well for having provided less than complete reliability for some of our partners when we said, after a certain date, you're no longer going to be able to use our jail. So it's a new day. We've stepped up and said we want a relationship of partnership, and this is being successful. And I think this applies to other areas of government service as well, but today's a good example of that renewed spirit.
That $11 million, how will that then impact the city?
So, and I'll turn to Beth Goldberg, my budget director, correct me. See, we were looking at different scenarios for how to serve our population. So you hit one, which is the long-term stability and predictability is important, and the potential capital cost, but that's out there in the future. In the near term, I think we're looking at a savings of about $2 million a year. Is that right, Beth? Yeah, so we're looking at a savings of $2 million a year over the other options we had. And in our budget, that's significant savings, and will enable us to preserve more direct services to the public.